Hello, dear students. This is Chetan Prajapati, Assistant Professor, MA Parikh Fine Arts and Arts College, Palanpur. Today we are going to discuss Rudyard Kipling. Before we start our discussion, I would like to advise you that when you listen to these audio lectures, sit with a pen and a paper with you. While listening, make note of the important points like the Nobel Prize winning year, other important awards, some crucial information about the author and the work, some important dates also, and some important lines like who said what about the writer and the work we are discussing about. Now, this process of learning will make your learning more attentive. After the audio session is over, go through the pamphlets that have already been dispatched in the classroom and make a comparison. I guarantee you that this way of learning will be quite helpful. One more thing I would like to make a note of is that use this time of lockdown in reading good books, prepare your own notes, or do some creative activities to sharpen your talents. Hope you would follow my instructions. Okay, then let us start our discussion. Joseph Rudyard Kipling was born on 30th December 1865. He was an English journalist, short story writer, poet, and novelist. He was born in Bombay, quite notably, in India, which inspired much of his work. Kipling wrote about Bombay, that mother of cities to me, for I was born in her gate, between the palms and the sea, where the world and steamers wait. He is seen as an innovator in the art of the short story. One critic noted that Kipling's children's books are classics, a versatile and luminous narrative gifts. So, whenever we remember of children literature, we are reminded of Rudyard Kipling, and we all know the childhood character animation character Mowgli. We all should be thankful to Rudyard Kipling that he bestowed us with the character of Mowgli, whom we still like to watch on television whenever there is the story of Jungle Book going on. Kipling in the late 19th and early 20th centuries was among the United Kingdom's most popular writers. Henry James said, Kipling strikes me personally as the most complete man of genius, as distinct from fine intelligence that I have never known. In 1907, he was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature. Make sure of this date. Rudyard Kipling won the Nobel Prize in 1907. So in 1907, he was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature as the first English language writer to receive the prize, and at 41, its youngest recipient to date. He was also sounded for the British poet laureateship and several times for a knighthood also, but declined both. Following his death on 18th January 1936, his ashes were interred at Poets' Corner, part of the south transept of Westminster Abbey. Now let us see what did some prominent Indians believe about Rudyard Kipling. Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister of independent India, often described Kipling's novel Keem as one of his favorite books. Indian writer Khushwant Singh wrote in 2001 that he considers Kipling's Eve the essence of the message of the Gita in English, referring to the Bhagavad Gita, an ancient Indian scripture. Indian writer R.K. Narayan also said, Kipling, the supposed expert writer on India, showed a better understanding of the mind of the animals in the jungle than of the man in an Indian home or the marketplace. Now, after having discussed biographical detail as well as what did some Indians say about Rudyard Kipling, let us talk about some prominent works by Rudyard Kipling. So, let us begin with The Jungle Book. The Jungle Book, published in 1894, is a collection of stories by the English author Rudyard Kipling. Most of the characters are animals, such as Shere Khan, the tiger, and Balu, the bear, though a principal character is the boy or man cub Mowgli, who is raised in the jungle by wolves. The stories are set in a forest in India, One place mentioned repeatedly is Seoni. Make sure you may be asked in the examination which is the place that is quite repeatedly mentioned in the stories of the Jungle Book, that is Seoni in the central state of Madhya Pradesh. Now let us see the next prominent work by Rudyard Kipling, that is Kim. Kim was first published serially in McClure's magazine from December 1900 to October 1901, as well as in Castle's magazine from January to November in 1901, and it was first published in a book form by Macmillan and Company Limited in October 1901. The story unfolds against the backdrop of the Great Game, the political conflict between Russia and Britain in Central Asia. The novel made the term Great Game popular and introduced the theme of great power rivalry and intrigue. It is set after the Second Afghan War, which ended in 1881. The novel is notable for its detailed portrait of the people, culture, and varied religions of India. The book presents a vivid picture of India, its teeming populations, religions, and superstitions, and the life of the bazaars and the road. Now, there is one story which is very famous by Rudyard Kipling, and that is The Man Who Would Be King. The Man Who Would Be King was published in 1888. It is a story by Rudyard Kipling about two British adventurers in British India who become kings of Kafiristan, a remote part of Afghanistan. The story was first published in the Phantom Rickshaw and Other Eerie Tales in 1888. It also appeared in Wee Willie Winkie and Other Child Stories in 1895 and numerous later editions of that collection. Rudyard Kipling is also very famous for some prominent poetry collection and poetry. Number 1, Mandalay was published in 1890. His poetry Ganga Din was published in 1890. His another poetry, The Gods of the Copybook Headings, was published in 1919. The White Man's Burden was published in 1899, and the poetry for which Rudyard Kipling is most cherished, that is If, was published in 1910. After having discussed biographical detail and some of the prominent works by Rudyard Kipling, let us see some of the three prominent quotations of by Rudyard Kipling, what he said in it. Number 1, words are of course the most powerful drug used by mankind. Number 2, we are all islands shouting lies to each other across seas of misunderstanding. This is what he said in The Light That Failed. Number 3, if history were taught in the form of stories, it would never be forgotten. Now the third one really appeals to me, because when I was a student, history was seriously a boring subject to me. But had I understood this one, or had the history teachers understood this quotation, that if history were taught in the form of stories, it would never have been the boring subject for the students, and it would have been remembered by the students easily. So students, this was the discussion about Rudyard Kipling. I hope you got some important information about Rudyard Kipling. Make sure that you follow my instructions and understand this lecture very seriously. For almost all the recording of this lecture, I have taken reference of Wikipedia. Thank you.